Welcome back to the digestive system. This is Jalen Bio. Let's go ahead and get started. In this session, we'll cover the following learning objectives. List the organs that make up the GI tract. Listen and describe the four tunics that make up the gastrointestinal wall. Identify and describe the anatomical structures of the oral cavity. Describe the process of mastication. Identify and describe the gross anatomy and histology of the stomach. Describe the phases that regulate motility and secretion in the stomach. Identify and describe the anatomy of the small intestine. Explain motility within the small intestine. Identify and describe the three major regions of the large intestine and four segments of the colon. Compare short reflexes and long reflexes that regulate the digestive system. List the accessory organs associated with releasing secretions into the duodenum, and describe the ducts that deliver these secretions. Describe the general functions of hormones that regulate the process of digestion. Alright, let's get started. An overview of the main components of the gastrointestinal tract. The digestive system includes the organs that ingest food, mix, and propel ingested materials and secretions to facilitate the digestion. It absorbs nutrients and expels waste products from the body. The GI tract forms this continuous tube that includes the oral cavity, the pharynx, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, large intestine, and the anus. The entire length of the GI tract is lined with mucosal membrane. Within the lumen of the GI tract, ingested food is broken down to smaller components both through chemical and physical means. It is then absorbed into the blood or the lymph. There's also some accessory digestive organs that are connected to the GI tract, and their main function is to produce secretions that empty into the GI tract that include enzymes that help with the breakdown of the food products. The GI tract is a hollow tube composed of four tunics. The mucosa is the innermost tunic, which consists of epithelium and an underlying lamina propria, this thin layer of muscularis mucosa. The epithelium is in contact with contents within the lumen and consists of a simple columnar epithelium through most of the tract. The lamina propria is composed of areolar connective tissue that contains small blood vessels, lymphatic capillaries, and nerves. The muscularis mucosa is a thin layer of smooth muscle deep to the lamina propria that causes slight movements in the mucosa by contracting the release of secretions from the mucosa. The submucosal layer is composed of mostly areolar of dense areolar connective tissue and contains many blood vessels, lymph vessels, nerves, and glands. The submucosal nerve plexus innervates the smooth muscle and the submucosa with autonomic nerves. This is also where you're going to find structures like the Peyer's patch, which is a mucosa-associated lymphatic tissue located inside the ileum. The muscularis layer contains two layers of smooth muscle. The smooth muscle layers are organized in the inner circular layer and then an outer longitudinal layer. And the final outermost tunic can be either an ebentia or serosa. This ebentia is composed of areolar connective tissue that is dispersed with a lot of collagen and elastic fibers that are found outside the peritoneal cavity. So you can see the muscularis externa, the mucosal layer, the serosa, and the submucosa. There are four layers of the GI tract. In the lumen, we have the three sub-layers, which is the muscularis mucosa, lamina propria, epithelial tissue. That's the mucosal layer. Then we have the muscularis externa layer, primarily used for motility. This is where muscle tissue is. It also contains the myenteric nerve plexus, which regulates secretion of some of the juices. The submucosal layer is where secretion is mostly dominated within the muscularis externa. It contains the nerves, circulatory blood vessels, and lymphatics. And then the serosa layer is contiguous with mesenteries and contains also the blood vessels, nerves, and lymphatics. Over here shows you some specialization of the lumen. Inside the small intestine of the duodenum, you'll see that they have these extended villi. The second part of the stomach is called jejunum, and the third part is called ileum, and all three parts are going to have these extended hair cells called villi. The ileum contains a Peyer's patch, which is an immune-based set of cells called the MALT. MALT stands for mucosa-associated lymphatic tissue. The colon is going to contain myenteric plexus, also known as the Auerbach's plexus. The esophagus is going to contain the esophageal mucosal gland. And the stomach will contain gastric glands that secrete acid. Motility is a major digestive process. There are two types of motions that can be accomplished by the GI tract. Peristalsis, which is a coordinated muscle contraction and relaxation in a wave-like format. This pushes the food product, or also known as a bolus, forward. As you can see, it squeezes behind the tube, therefore propelling the food product further down. Segmentation is another type of movement. This is a simultaneous muscle contraction that goes back and forth. This allows the enzymes and juices to mix in with the food product, allowing chemical digestion to occur. Digestion could be either mechanical or chemical. Mechanical means that it begins inside the oral cavity, where you have the teeth that shear and break down the food products, and does not break down by chemical bonds. It increases the surface area for chemical digestion. Chemical breakdown begins also in the oral cavity, but utilizes the saliva, carried out by enzymes like the salivary amylase and some salivary lipase to break the chemicals down into smaller molecules from larger molecules. Then secretion is going to be movement of substances from the cell into the lumen, so you're getting rid of stuff, for example, secretion of HCl into the stomach to begin breakdown. And absorption will be the opposite movement. This is where movement of substance from the lumen back into the cell. This is highly selective depending on what part of the GI we're talking about. Most of the absorption happens inside the small intestine.